Have you ever met someone who seemed to see right through you? Not just reading your body language, not just guessing your mood, but almost pulling your thoughts right out of your head, sometimes before you even had them? It feels uncanny, like standing in front of a mirror that doesn't just reflect your face but your soul. That's the kind of presence we're talking about when we say, the most dangerous empath is the one with an INTJ-INFJ brain. This isn't dangerous in the Hollywood villain sense. It's dangerous because it's powerful. We're talking about a mind that can feel the depth of your emotions while also running strategic calculations in the background. It's like combining the heart of a healer with the brain of a chess grandmaster. Most empaths are overwhelmed by what they absorb. Most strategists seem cold or detached. But when empathy and strategy fuse into one person, you get someone who can transform, manipulate, or even completely rewrite the emotional landscapes around them. Carl Jung's psychology gives us the perfect lens to understand this phenomenon. By looking at Jung's original ideas of introversion, intuition, thinking, and feeling, and how they crystallized into the MBTI types we now call INTJ and INFJ, we can start to see why this particular wiring creates such a rare, almost intimidating force. Let's break it down piece by piece, and see why the empath who blends these two minds is both healer and disruptor, both visionary and dangerous. Carl Jung and psychological typology. Carl Jung wasn't just a psychiatrist, he was a mapmaker of the human psyche. In Psychological Types 1921, he tried to explain why people think, act, and feel so differently from one another. His answer was that our minds run on distinct functions and attitudes. Functions are ways of processing information, thinking, feeling, intuition, sensation, while attitudes determine the direction of our energy, introversion or extroversion. By combining these, Jung laid the groundwork for a spectrum of personalities that look nothing alike on the surface but follow deep inner patterns. For Jung, intuition, especially introverted intuition, was a kind of inner radar. It doesn't care about surface details. It's obsessed with what lies underneath, what's coming next, what hidden forces are shaping the moment. People who lead with NI are visionaries, often misunderstood because they speak in patterns and probabilities, while the world focuses on facts and details. Jung himself called them mystics and prophets. The Myers-Briggs system later expanded Jung's framework into 16 personality types. Among these, INTJ and INFJ stand out not just for their rarity, but for their reliance on NI as a dominant function. That's where the story gets interesting, because NI alone is already intense. But when it's paired with empathy INFJ or strategy INTJ, you get two very different but equally formidable personalities. And when these two brain modes fuse in a single empathic individual, the result is something Jung himself might have called archetypal, half healer, half sorcerer. Defining empathy in psychology. Empathy today is often oversimplified as being nice or feeling sorry for people, but psychology paints a more complex picture. There are at least 3 distinct layers of empathy. The first is cognitive empathy, understanding someone else's perspective without necessarily sharing their feelings. The second is emotional empathy, actually resonating with another's emotions, almost like catching their mood in your own body. And the third is compassionate empathy. The drive not just to feel, but to act on what you feel, to relieve suffering or bring change. Carl Jung didn't use the word empathy often, but his concept of the feeling function overlaps strongly with it. In Jung's terms, feeling wasn't about being emotional, it was about evaluating values, weighing human worth, and deciding what matters in a given situation. In that sense, empathy becomes more than just a soft skill. It becomes a way of orienting the psyche in relation to others. Now, here's the catch. Empathy without boundaries can become chaos. Many empaths drown in the emotions they absorb. They care so much they collapse under the weight. What makes the INTJ-INFJ empath dangerous is that they don't just feel, they structure, analyze, and use empathy with precision. They are not swept away by it, they channel it. Instead of being passive sponges, they become active architects of emotional reality. That's where the real power lies. INTJ, the master strategist. The INTJ type is often described as the mastermind, and for good reason. Their dominant NI sees patterns and outcomes long before they unfold. Their auxiliary function, extroverted thinking T, gives them the ability to take those insights and build systems, plans, and structures around them. To an INTJ, life is like a chessboard. Every move, every player, every potential outcome mapped in advance. But INTJs are often misunderstood. On the outside, they can seem detached, cold, or even arrogant. That's because their tertiary function, introverted feeling phi, is private and deeply personal. INTJs do care, but they guard their values closely, rarely displaying them until absolutely necessary. This combination makes them formidable leaders and strategists, but not necessarily warm or approachable. On their own, INTJs are brilliant at designing solutions and dismantling problems, but they may overlook the emotional undercurrents of human interaction. They can predict outcomes but miss the heartbeats driving them. They can build systems but struggle with softer human dynamics. This is why, when INTJ cognition is fused with INFJ empathy, the result isn't just strategy. It's strategy powered by the deepest understanding of people themselves. INFJ, the compassionate visionary. INFJs, in contrast, are empaths almost by design. Their dominant NI gives them vision, but their auxiliary function, extroverted feeling phi, roots them in the emotions of others. They don't just see where the world is heading, they feel the pulse of the people in it. This makes them extraordinary counselors, advocates, and healers. People often feel seen and understood around an INFJ in ways they can't explain. INFJs are often described as old souls, carrying a quiet wisdom that others sense even without words. They thrive on meaningful connections and often dedicate themselves to causes larger than themselves. But there's a shadow side too. Their empathy can overwhelm them. They can lose themselves in other people's struggles, neglecting their own needs, burning out emotionally and physically. What makes INFJs unique is that their empathy isn't chaotic, it's visionary. Their NI takes what they feel and projects it forward, imagining not just how things are but how they could be. This makes them dreamers with a mission, often drawn to roles where they can inspire, guide, or protect, and yet without structure, their visions can remain unrealized. That's where the INTJ side comes in, to give the dream its bones, its blueprint, its tactical reality. The INTJ-INFJ hybrid, dual wiring. Now imagine blending these two brains together, the strategist and the empath, the planner and the healer. What you get is a person who doesn't just feel emotions deeply but knows exactly what to do with them. This dual wiring is rare but incredibly potent. It's the difference between someone who senses the storm and someone who can also redirect its path. Both types share knee dominance, which means their minds naturally seek hidden meaning and future outcomes. But the INFJ brings emotional radar Fe, while the INTJ brings structural radar Te. Together, this creates what we might call strategic empathy. The ability to see patterns in both human emotion and external systems, then weave them together into action. This is why the INTJ-INFJ Empath can be both inspiring and intimidating. They can spot your motives, understand your emotions, and anticipate your choices, all while mapping how those choices will ripple outward. They don't just get people, they move people. It's a combination that can heal, empower, or, in the wrong hands, manipulate. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Why this empath is dangerous. Danger here doesn't mean evil, it means powerful. An INTJ-INFJ empath is dangerous because they can 1. See you more clearly than you see yourself. Their INI and Fe synergy allows them to anticipate your actions, motives, and emotional triggers before you've even named them. 2. Combine head and heart. Where most people either lead with logic or with feeling, they use both, analyzing emotions while strategizing outcomes. 3. Influence silently. They don't need to shout to be heard. They shape conversations, decisions, and relationships subtly, often without others realizing how deeply they've been guided. 4. Play the long game. They are not reactive empaths pulled in every direction by feelings. They calculate, plan, and influence patiently over time. 5. Weaponize empathy. This is the shadow side. With such deep insight into emotions, they can just as easily manipulate as they can heal. This is the double-edged sword of the INTJ-INFJ empath. They can dismantle toxic systems, inspire movements, or transform individuals, but they also carry the power to exploit, control, and dominate. The danger lies in how they choose to wield their gift. Jungian archetypes and the dangerous empath. Carl Jung would have recognized this combination as an alignment of multiple archetypes. The sage archetype lives in their NI, always seeking truth beneath appearances. The ruler lives in their TE, building structures and systems. The caregiver speaks through their FE, nurturing and protecting others. And hovering in the shadows is the trickster, or shadow, capable of manipulation, secrecy, and dark influence. This overlap of archetypes explains why they feel paradoxical. They can be fiercely compassionate and ruthlessly strategic. They can inspire trust while quietly pulling strings. They can sacrifice themselves for a cause and simultaneously calculate its political benefits. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires confronting the shadow. For the INTJ-INFJ empath, this means recognizing that their power can cut both ways. Without awareness, they risk becoming the very manipulators they despise. With awareness, they can become extraordinary forces for good. The archetypal power of this combination makes them feel almost mythic. Think of healers who are also warriors, prophets who are also kings, leaders who can hold both compassion and control without losing either. This is the archetypal terrain the INTJ-INFJ empath inhabits. That's why they inspire awe, and sometimes fear. Risks and pitfalls. Of course, being wired this way is not all power and glory. There are risks that make the INTJ-INFJ empath vulnerable. One is emotional burnout. INFJ wiring makes them deeply sensitive to suffering, And when combined with INTJ intensity, they can push themselves far past their limits in pursuit of a vision. They often give more than they have to give. Another pitfall is moral manipulation. The INTJ side can rationalize cold strategic moves, while the INFJ side convinces itself it's all for the greater good. This creates a dangerous loop where manipulation becomes justified as helping. They may begin to orchestrate others' lives without consent, believing they know best. Finally, there's the risk of isolation. Few people can match their depth, so they may feel perpetually alone, alienated, or misunderstood. Their visions may make them impatient with others, or their empathy may weigh so heavily that they retreat from connection altogether. Without grounding, the very gifts that make them powerful can also make them lonely and self-destructive. The potential for good. But when balanced, the INTJ-INFJ Empath is extraordinary. They can lead with both clarity and compassion, building systems that work for people rather than against them. They can anticipate social fractures and diffuse them before they explode. They can inspire individuals by not only understanding their pain but also showing them a practical way out. Their true gift is integration. The INTJ gives the INFJ's visions form. The INFJ gives the INTJ's strategies heart. Together, they become a blueprint for what Jung called individuation, wholeness, where intellect and feeling, vision and action, self and other all harmonize. This is why the dangerous empath, when self-aware, can change the world. They are not just dreamers or planners, they are dreamers who can plan, planners who can feel. In a time when humanity needs both empathy and strategy more than ever, this hybrid wiring is not just dangerous, it's necessary. Conclusion. So, who is the most dangerous empath? It's the one with an INTJ-INFJ brain. The person who can hold your pain in their heart while mapping the entire battlefield in their head. They are dangerous not because they destroy, but because they can see too much, feel too much, and act with a precision most of us can't imagine. Carl Jung gave us the tools to understand why such minds exist, why they seem paradoxical, and why they carry both light and shadow within them. And the truth is, the danger isn't just for others, it's for themselves too. If they integrate their power, they become healers, visionaries, leaders. If they don't, they risk manipulation, burnout, and isolation. But make no mistake, in the right hands, this empath is not just dangerous. They are transformative. They can move hearts and minds, rebuild systems, and shape the future. And in a world starving for both wisdom and compassion, that might be the most powerful, and yes, the most dangerous gift of all.